welcome to Yojna IAS. Today we'll be discussing about the subject matter in sociology. So let's start. Now the first question is, what does sociology deals with? Now sociology deals with human behavior, aspects of society, in which we are living. Now the next question comes, what it explains. It explains you the working of institutions, further it tells you about human interactions, and all this comes under the perspective of social context. And mind you, it's not merely individuals' psychology. Further, what influences human behavior? Now, human behavior is majorly influenced by the culture in which a person is born and brought up. So, culture in which a person is born and brought up. And what does that culture comprises of? Now, culture itself has many subcultures. And what are those subcultures? Now, the subcultures consist of gender, caste, differences in power, because that what brings opportunities at your way. So, differences in power and material inequality as well. So, we live in a society which is unequal. Further, why do we need to study sociology? Now see, our society is changing. How is it changing? Firstly, we were surviving through hunting and gathering. Now this society transformed to a more complex society. Further, a traditional society changed to a modern society. So you see, society has been very dynamic in its aspect. So to study the dynamic nature of society, it's very important that we need to study sociology. Now, various sociologists have different perspectives, and how do we know that? What are those perspectives? Like how to understand nature of society. So, different sociologists came with different perspective. One perspective was consensus approach. What is that consensus approach? Now, this approach says that society is divided in parts, and all these parts contributes towards the functioning of society. Second approach could be the conflicting perspective. And what is that conflict perspective? Now, under this perspective, you will study about Marxian perspective. And feminism could be one such big example of today's time. So feminism, mind you, feminism. Now after going through consensus approach, conflict approach, we thought that this isn't enough and what we need is more of a micro approach. So we went for an interaction approach. And under interaction approach, we were dealing with micro parts of society, that is through interaction. Now, further moving towards, sociologists came to a conclusion that instead of studying society through a scientific approach or through a non-scientific approach is not a healthy description of a social science. So they went for what? So they started to get a best analysis for this subject, and the best analysis what they thought was to study individuals' reaction, individuals' interaction along with the major changes of society. So you see, individual's perception as well as the changes of the society together would give you a societal analysis. So this analysis was rather called by C.W. Mills as the sociological imagination. Now the question was, why are we considering this as the best analysis? Now I would explain you it through an example, and that example would be why it is important to study private troubles through public issues. Now one such example would be your unemployment. If unemployment increases, the rates are very high, which we could witness it in today's time. So when the unemployment rate is very high, this subject becomes a political subject as well as a economic subject. So it is no longer the personal or the private subject. I could better say this with an example. Recently Google, Twitter have terminated so many employees. So that actually needs a study. How is this private trouble going to become a big public issue? So this is what it is about sociology. So thank you so much for your patience.